Okay, well, I think we will go ahead and get started. I'm sure we'll have a few more people kind of straggle in as we kind of get started here. Thank you all so much for joining us here live for How to Tuesday or on replay. Today we are talking about cover letters and resumes. These are a really important part of getting the job, right? This is a really big part of whether you are going to be picked and for an interview or passed over. And so we want you to put your best foot forward. And often your first impression with potential employers is your cover letter and your resume. So today we are teaming up with our career services team. Today we have Zach Gerard and John Muma who are here to help us discuss the importance of a cover letter and resume and how to craft yours so that you can get the job. This is perfect for all of our students who are on the job market or thinking about internships or part-time jobs or even thinking about what that might look like for them in the next few years. And again, this is our How to Tuesday series. This is our weekly webinar series that's just 30 minutes for a quick bite of information for you to be successful here at Park University. We are going to have this wonderful presentation from them, and then we'll have time for some question and answers. So if you have questions, please feel free to post them in the chat, and then we'll have some time at the end for you to come off mic or off mute and get on the mic and ask us questions as well, or via chat. So I'm going to hand it over to Zach and John, and they're going to take it away.
Awesome. Well, thank you for the introduction, Camille. It's great to see everyone today, or great to see you if you're watching this recording. So I'm Zach, and I'm joined by my colleague, John. And today we'll give you some of our thoughts and tips on creating strong cover letters and resumes. So just to provide a brief overview of what we'll cover, we'll talk about some of the basics behind what makes up a strong cover letter and a strong resume. Then we'll share some of our thoughts on what to avoid, but also what to add to both of these documents. And then we'll share some of the lessons that we've learned along the way from developing our own cover letters and resumes, but also working with students and alumni from all over and all across Park University. And now I will pass this off to John to talk about a cover letter.
Thank you, Zach. Cover letter is one of the two documents that you can use to get an employer interested in you for a particular job. First of all, you want to introduce yourself to your employer. Probably in the first paragraph of the cover letter, you want to tell them the specific job that they've advertised that you're interested in. Give them some sense of why you're interested in this particular job, and also give them a sense that you've done some homework about the company. You know a little bit about, both the job they're offering and the company in general. You also want to, in terms of key aspects, keep it simple, right? Usually I suggest 4 or 5 paragraphs of moderate size in a cover letter. You really don't need to make your cover letter longer than 1 page. And you want to be enthusiastic about yourself and the position, okay? And link your position to the job. Show them, talk to them about why you think you could do the job, why you're interested in it, and why you would probably be the best choice for the job. Yes, and demonstrate you are familiar with the company. You've done your homework. You've looked at their website. You've seen some positive things about the company, like if they'd opened new markets every year over the last 5 years. You want to show enthusiasm for that. You want to work with a company that's got that kind of a bright future. And then in the final paragraph of the cover letter, you want to stress that, thank them for reading your cover letter, and you'd be very interested in meeting with them for an interview. Okay, Zach?
Awesome. Thank you, John.
Certainly.
So going along with the cover letter, resume is another key document that you might submit to a prospective employer. And I think of this as your story in terms of your past work history that you've had. And this can include your education. So if you graduated from high school, college, if you've completed postgraduate work, so perhaps a master's or doctorate degree. Could also be certifications. If you have a more technical resume, so if you're applying perhaps for like a information technology role, maybe you list some of the programming languages you know, that'd be a little more technical. Also your past work experience, so this could be full-time and part-time roles, or even if you created a business or a nonprofit, you could list that as well under work experience. And then volunteer work that you've done. So this could be causes that you've been involved with, if there's specific roles you've been in within various volunteer organizations. And the end goal with having a resume is that you show that you have the education, the work history or work experience, and the volunteer experience to make the case for you being the most qualified candidate. And you want to remember as you're putting your resume together, you want to be careful what information you put in there because when you go to an interview, there are laws they're protecting, what they can and cannot ask you. So some information you would not want to put in a resume, marital status, your age, perhaps, date of birth or whatnot. Some of that stuff you could put on an application kind of separate from a resume, or if you get accepted to a job, that'd be afterward. And some of the key points to consider when making a strong resume. The first one is to build, I call it a master resume. So this is a document that has all your education on it, all your work experience, all your volunteer stuff. And then what you can do is you can take pieces of that and you can tailor it to specific roles. Because as we look at a lot of companies today, they're using automated systems to filter resumes. And if all you do is just send the same resume to 10 or 15 places, it might not make it through that initial filter because it's looking for keywords or key experiences you've got. It's important to make sure you tailor your resume to the job. So one resume you submit to employer A might be different than employer B. And then I always emphasize for students and alumni to include their volunteer experience, especially if they're early career. It's okay to list some of those volunteer roles as work history because oftentimes you're learning a lot of work skills from your volunteer stuff. And if you're watching this, if you're a student athlete, you can list that under volunteer experience or under work experience because there's a lot of stuff that athletic teams do that mimic the workplace. And along with a resume, this is something that I talk to law students and alumni about, is creating what I call a personal accomplishments page. And the goal of this page, it's a chance to share some of your major accomplishments you've had. So this would be stuff that if I had met you for the first time and I asked you, what are you the most proud of that you've done? This document would have the answers to that question. And you could use this in an interview. You could bring in a page that has some of your accomplishments. You could hand that to a person interviewing you and help kind of guide that conversation. But I also think it could help with developing your cover letter and resume, and it helps you build your confidence. It helps show that you've done a lot of stuff in the past, and oftentimes I think we can overlook that. We get so overwhelmed with what we're doing day to day that it's hard to step back and be like, wow, I actually made an impact here, or I made a big difference in this volunteer organization there. And some key points to think about when developing a page like this. Start with just trying to get to one page. So make a list of 3 to 5 accomplishments, do about a paragraph for each of them. And then just as I was talking about with the resume, creating a master template, you can develop a master list of personal accomplishments as well. And then go in about every 3 to 6 months and update it. And then you can tailor the accomplishments you have to various roles. And there's one person I know, to give an example, they were applying for a role that required fundraising skills. And so they had some accomplishments related to that, and they were able to highlight that in an interview, which in some ways might have helped them get the role that they were looking for. And now I will pass this back to on to talk about what to avoid on a cover letter and a resume.
Okay, so these are some things that you don't want to do in either the cover letter or the resume. First of all, sending employers generic cover letters. That is, you make up one cover letter, like the master resume, but you don't make changes to it to fit the particular job. Okay. You want to have in your cover letter, reasons, fairly detailed, but not too long, that show why you want this particular job, what you know about the company, things of that nature. Not doing research on the employer. You definitely want to do some research on the employer. Okay, you want to show them you know something about the company, because they will get resumes from people who are just sending out resumes and cover letters that are generic. Okay, that just talk about, I'd be a great employee to have on board, but they don't mention anything about the particular job that they're seeking. Okay, and not linking your skills to the job. You definitely want to do that. Okay, if you are very familiar with the computer system Python, for example, you may want to talk about how long you've been working with that, what you did with Python in your past job. Enough detail about that if that's one of the main things they want to see is somebody who's familiar with that system, you can show them that and you can explain it in a cover letter rather than just listing it in incomplete sentences in the resume. And in terms of the resume, long job descriptions. A lot of people will put 9 or 10 things they've done at their particular company in bullet points. The bullet points are okay, but I would try to limit them to 3 or 4 that relate directly to the types of experience that the prospective employer you're looking to is looking for in a new hire. Using first person instead of third person. First person is words like I, me, my. You want to avoid those. You never see those in resume unless it is a summary paragraph of your experience or personal profile that might go at the beginning. Some people use that at the beginning of the resume. But in the body of the resume, both your education and experience sections, you don't want to start everything with I. You can just say words like, developed, managed, created, innovated, things like that, positive words, and start the list of bullet points on your current resume and job experiences you've had with those types of words. And you want to be sure you use keywords for the job. As Zach said, a lot of companies will have systems, filters, their computers, and they can knock out of the running any resume that doesn't use any of those words. Okay, so now let's talk about what to add or what to make sure you have in your cover letter. Tell your story. You want to do this briefly, but you want to be sure you give them a sense of who you are, and kind of an overview of your work history to show them that you have a strong work ethic. Okay, even if you have nothing but like jobs that people get in high school, working at Walmart or McDonald's, something like that. If you can show a consistent pattern over time of that, you can help show that you have a strong work ethic. Education and volunteer experience. Zach has mentioned this already. Volunteer experience helps to show them that you are a giving, self-sacrificing, team building type of person. You're not just out for yourself. And quite often that's what a company would like to see. And you want to end the cover letter on a positive note, making sure that they understand you really are interested in this particular job at this particular company, and you would appreciate the chance, to receive an interview. In terms of the resume, make sure contact information is visible. I always recommend up at the top underneath your name, your address, phone number, and email address. Academic accomplishments. If you have a strong GPA in the education section, a good idea to put that. If you have relevant courses that they wouldn't expect to see, but they would think might make for a valuable, background experience, might include that. And then sometimes it pays to have a whole volunteer section. If you've done like mission work, volunteer work with your church or your school, something like that, that could weigh just as heavily as your work experience, particularly if you've only had a few jobs before going to college. Okay, Zach?
Thank you, John.
Certainly.
So as we step back, as we think about some lessons that John and I have learned or best practices to share, in terms of the cover letter, you want to be clear about the goal that you have. So somewhere early on stating, my goal is to apply for ABC position. You want to make sure the employer knows that you're applying for a specific role, because sometimes they might have multiple job listings open, and you do not want them to get confused about what your intent is with applying for a specific role. And then you want to make sure, as you're reading through a job you're applying for, as you're looking at what's required, what the employer would prefer, the job description, that in your cover letter, you're linking your education, and then also your past work or volunteer experience to that job, to help make that case that you're the most qualified candidate. And then it's okay to make a compelling case. As John had mentioned, you want to remember that you might be competing with other applicants and whatnot. So you want to show that you're as qualified as possible for a role. And even ending on a memorable note, having like a tagline from the company, demonstrating you've done your research, that will impress prospective employers that are looking to hire talented folks like we have at our university. And then in terms of our resume, it's important to make sure that you keep it very simple. So as John had mentioned, when you're describing your past work experience, keep it to 3 to 4 bullet points per role, but then also have a consistent feel to it. You want to make sure that you've gone through, you've had someone look at it, you don't have any grammatical issues, because if you do, instead of reading about your awesome experience, they're going to recognize you missed a period here, you have a misspelling there, you have excess spacing at certain points, and that'll distract them from reading about your story, about your work history. And then we cannot emphasize enough, create a master template. So make a resume that has all your stuff on it, and then you can use that to tailor when you're applying for specific roles. And then in a much broader sense, think about where you want to go in the future. So 3 to 5 years from now, I want to be a manager or a business owner or a CEO or maybe a mid or upper level manager. And use your resume to think about career goals. So what are gaps you have in your work history or your education, or maybe volunteer experience? You want to get more involved in the community so you could network. Looking at your resume could be a starting point for that, and remembering that's a living document. So as you go through, as you get more experience, as you graduate from Park and go on to do awesome stuff, make sure that you're periodically updating your resume, because you never know what opportunities you might see in the near future. So I'm going to stop the presentation for a second. I'm going to show everyone where they can go to find some of the university resources on our website. So if you go under current students and you look for career services, or if you just type in Park University career services, you'll find this page here. And we have some links here. So there's some additional information beyond this session about resumes and cover letters. There's some tools to help you with exploring different careers. also planning tools. And then this one tool I'd like to highlight here is what I think could be very useful for doing a job search. So our university, we provide a tool called Handshake, which is available for students, but then also alumni, and this includes graduate students as well. This is a huge database that has a whole wide range of internships and different roles at organizations. So I highly encourage you to check this out if you can. And then if you go right here, this will take you to schedule a cover letter or resume building appointment with John, myself, or other incredible folks we have that have a lot of experience with this. And you can also go on to tutor.com. So if you're not able to find someone at a certain time, tutor.com is available 24/7, 7 days a week. They also have folks that can help you with developing your cover letter or resume. So as we close out this session, John and I, we've both shared some of the basics behind developing a cover letter, a resume, and then I've shared some thoughts on creating a personal accomplishments page. We've shared some tips on what to avoid, but then also what to add or what to include in these documents. We've shared some of our lessons that we've learned from developing these documents ourselves, but then working with students and alumni. And then we've shown you where you could find these resources on the university website. And just want to thank everyone for taking the time to watch this video or attend this session live. Again, feel free to reach out to us. And as we had mentioned before, these services are available to students, including graduate students, but also our alumni. So if you graduate, if you need help with this stuff, or if you're looking for another job, that's what we're here to do. So thank you.
Awesome. Wonderful. Thank you so much, Zach and John, for that wonderful presentation. What questions do you guys have? I know a couple of us have already popped off, busy day, lots to do, but do we have any questions from any students or faculty or staff that are still on the call that we can answer for you? I'll start with a question. How about that? And then that way, if anyone else has a question, they can pop into the chat or feel free to unmute. But one thing that I was thinking about is, if I have no job experience, how do I even start, right? They always say that it's hard to get experience when you have no experience, and that's kind of a cycle, right? So how do I even start making a resume when I really feel like I have nothing to put on it because I have no formal job or work experience? What would you recommend for that, Zach and John?
Well,
John, you can go first.
Yeah, one thing I would suggest is to realize that the job you're applying for might have lots of candidates who are in the same position you are and don't have strong work histories simply because that hasn't been possible up to this point. As I mentioned earlier, maybe the strongest, longest job you've had is stocking shelves at Walmart or something like that, which might have no direct application to a job you're applying for. So think of your strengths. I mean, if you have a high GPA, you've taken classes that directly relate to the job you're applying for, I would maybe put your education section up toward the top if you feel that's much stronger than your work experience. I worked with a student recently who had not had a job previously, but she did have a pretty high GPA, and she'd done some volunteer work. So as Zach and I both mentioned in the first part of the presentation, you can put your volunteer work, in its own section on the resume, but try to provide enough, of positive experience and positive aspects about yourself to fill a single page on the resume. If there's too much blank space on there, I think that kind of works against you. So think of all of the positive things you've got to say and add those. Zach?
Sure. Thank you, John. I think those were some great points. To add to that, The first part I'd recommend is to think about where do you want to go 3 to 5 years from now? So it's like if I'm a freshman in college, by the time I graduate, I want to have ABC full-time role or maybe an internship, and look at some of those gaps because that could give you steps perhaps to get there. So you start with a volunteer role, you get an internship, work towards a full-time role. The second point I would suggest is to look and see what you can make of the opportunities you've got in front of you. And at our school, believe it or not, there's a lot of those. We have an annual symposium every April that's interdisciplinary. You can present an academic poster, you can do a virtual or in-person presentation. You can co-present, so you can work with other students. You can get involved with clubs. Being the president of a club or a treasurer, there's a lot you can learn that can transfer to full-time work or part-time. And then network, get to know your faculty, get to know the students within your class. You might be surprised. You never know what doors they might be able to open for you.
Awesome. Thank you both so much. I think that we have had a wonderful foray into cover letters and resume writing. If you need any additional help with this, you are welcome to visit our career services department. And we have specialized tutors and support systems to help you with that. We can have one-on-one support for you as students, even as an alumni, to help create and craft that cover letter and resume. And this is a free service for you, so don't hesitate to reach out. Please let us help you with that. We would be really glad to share additional knowledge and expertise on that topic. And if you have any other questions, feel free to reach out to us. Thank you all so much for joining us for How To Tuesday. Don't miss next week's How To Tuesday, which is all about time management. Again, right here, Tuesday at 4 p.m. Don't forget to register online at library.park.edu. Thanks so much for joining us and have a wonderful afternoon. Bye-bye.